Hi everyone, Adrian Player here. Let's talk a little bit about commercial. So if you go through the last couple of videos, I've talked about commercial and our buy that we've just done. So a 3.8 mil commercial buy, super cheap auto and a pet barn, 5 and 7 year leases on a 6% net yield, right? Now, let's go through the progression plan on how we got here. So when you have about 14 to 1600 investors on your book as a mortgage broker, a lot of those investors over time, the bigger that they get, the more likely they are to buy commercial. So we saw the uptick in 2024 with the amount of commercial lending that we were doing, and then 2025, and now we're in 2026. All right, and this is all before the Labor government changes happened in the space surrounding shutting off, resi SMSF, shutting off negative gearing, and essentially hammering the residential market. So everyone's gone through a 5 to 6 year bull run in Australia, and now people are wondering where to park their money. And even before the Labor government changes came out, they were parking that money in commercial. There was already a huge wave of capital that was coming that way. Now that the Labor government changes have occurred, that has just doubled or tripled the amount of inquiry that we're getting from, complex investors that have made a lot of money on the resi investment side, and now they're moving that money into commercial. So we started seeing quite a few more transactions in the space. So we started seeing a lot more deals. Now that we're probably 3 to 3.5 years into writing a lot of commercial, just this year alone, I've probably seen in excess of 300 to 400 deals. All right. So over the last 3.5 to 4 years, how many deals have we seen? We've probably seen 1,000, 1,500 deals. And not every deal goes through, but we get to see everything that the buyer's agent has sent across. Now, the buyer's agent that I used was Policey Property, Steve Police. So he's also got a commercial property investment course as well. So you can go and have a chat with him and sign up for the course for free as well. That'll help you. And then, yeah, so we've seen, 1,000, 1,500 deals, somewhere in the realm of that. And I've seen kind of what everyone's been doing. You've got some types of clients that are buying, multiple $1 million properties, and then you've got some clients that have made a decent amount of cash, or they're like the bigger business owners or the doctors. They're tending to buy stuff in the 3 to 6 mil range outright. They're not buying, 3, 4, or $5 million properties, right? So you start seeing the amount of deals. And then we saw, Perth and Brisbane go through the roof. Now, everyone wanted industrial warehouses. And, 2 years ago, you could find maybe a 6.5% net yield on the rental yields. Now, the rents have all crunched in. So you're coming closer to maybe a 5.5%, maybe 5.7% net yield on the leases. So you're in a position where the capital growth has gone through the roof in the Perth and the Brisbane markets in the industrial space. The yields have all crunched in from, down to about a 5.5% range. And now you're in that position where commercial is a yield asset, right? So you need to maintain the yield, not just for your borrowing power, but your deal risk. In commercial, you've got more risk, so you need to offset that with the yield. Now, a lot of people, they try and go into the office space to get higher yields, but they're increasing their risk because the vacancy rate has gone through the roof in office space. So a lot of people are avoiding everything except for the AAA grade, really big office space in the regional and the main city markets. Everything else in the office space market is like 10 and 15% vacancy rates, right? So you see a lot of that, and then you start seeing the buys that people are doing, and then I start dealing with the commercial bankers a lot, and a lot of the, like in the resi space, there's 50 plus lenders. In the commercial space, there's only really like 9, with a lot of different private lenders on top of that. But half of those lenders are sitting on really high rates. So unless you're doing something in the third tiers, like building a mezzanine and then refinancing it back to the majors, or buying a property. It's got a lease coming up in 6 to 12 months, upticking the lease and then refinancing it back to the majors. Third tiers are great for that, but not very good for long-term holds. So once I started dealing with the commercial bankers a lot for the last 3.5 years and seeing a lot of deal flow, that was already at the point where a lot of my resi properties were going through the roof, and no one was buying commercial, especially the ones that stacked a lot of resi, until about 2024. We started seeing signs around halfway through the year, and then every year after that it's gone up more than 50%. Okay, so now we get to me, and I've got a significant balance, and most of my properties have doubled the 9 investment resi properties that we had. So then we just decided, yeah, let's go and park our money over there. But when we talked about our commercial buy, the thing that really astounded us was we knew that there was a 5 and 7 year lease on there, and we knew that there was about 40 grand worth of outgoings on top of the 6% net yield that we could restructure the lease in 5 to 7 years and put it onto the tenant to increase our yield on cost. But what people don't really tell you is this. Originally I was thinking, because we were in and around 50 to 55% LVR on a 3.8 mil property, right? So I was thinking that our net income would be somewhere around 105 grand a year. So then that replaces Maria's salary, and that's a net figure after all costs, right? So that's just pumping our bank account up 8 to 8.5 grand a year. But what people don't tell you is this: when you don't have an outgoing that month, which we haven't, and our total rent is closer to, I think it's about 26 and a bit grand, less 5.5% management cost. So it comes down to about a 24 to 25 grand, depending on if we've got any outgoings. And the only outgoing that we've had in the last 2 months is gutter vac cleaning. I think that was about $700. So after you account for our interest and our interest rate, we're about 14.5 grand net positive on the month. So if you annualize that, we're closer to 180 grand a year. But you don't get told that at the start when you buy these properties. So yeah, of course I'm going to have to park that money, and then I'll have an outgoing later on this year sometime. But what they don't tell you is that money gets put into our loan, into our redraw account as an extra repayment, and it reduces my interest until that happens. So I originally had a pay down schedule of about 6 to 6.5 years. And that's if I'm tipping in about 150, 200 grand for my business, plus the net positive cash flow from the property. And that's assuming that rates stay the same. So if rates drop through the floor, it's going to get paid off quicker. Now that I know what I know, it's actually going to get paid off about 15 to 20% quicker. So it looks like it's going to get paid in the early 5 years, maybe 4.8 years to about 5.2 years. So that's a really big difference. And the other thing that I'll tell you is this. My wife was very uncomfortable having 9 resi investment properties, even when they were neutrally geared, because we got a lot of rebates at the end of the year with our tax returns, but the bank account for 11 months of the year would slowly go down. And my wife knew that, Maria, that the equity kept on going up, right, but it's a fake number until it hits the bank account. So that's been the biggest thing in the last kind of 2.5 months, where we've seen a net figure come into the account and the bank account keeps going up. So look, that's just something else that we're experiencing in the commercial space. So if you've got any questions about commercial property investing, any questions about the process and how it works, if you need help, if some of this resonates with you, send me a message. I'm more than happy to help.